This show is brought to you by Hastings Crossing Business Improvement Association, the Social Innovation BIA. In the past 5 years, more pedestrians have been killed in Vancouver than drivers, passengers, cyclists and motorcyclists combined. Vancouver has the highest per capita pedestrian fatalities of any large Canadian city. The numbers are staggering: 81 pedestrians, 26 vehicle drivers, 16 passengers, 15 motorcyclists and 6 cyclists. Some of the fatalities included hit and run, where in a few cases the driver didn't even notice that a pedestrian was hit. The Insurance Corporation of British Columbia, which is compared to Europe and the United States the only insurance corporation acting for both sides in the case of an accident, says that the number of accidents involving pedestrians usually jumps up 80% in the months of November and December compared to July and August. What can be done and where do we go with this? For the sake of the children, you should really obey the rules. Welcome to a new show of AhornTV. And last month was Pedestrian Awareness Month, correct, Officer Falke?
Yep, generally we call it the Pedestrian Awareness Month because we want to raise the issue of pedestrian safety in our day-to-day commute. Traffic-related incidents are usually higher up in the winter season.
So that's why probably the politicians picked January, but it's all year, isn't it? That pedestrians and also drivers that they should actually cope much better with each other. It's because we hear in the news quite often about pedestrians driven over.
Yeah, I believe we can do much better together, commuting daily in and out the town, in the city. Whether we take the public transportation or we are on foot, on a bicycle or driving a car, if we do communicate with each other better and also respect each other, I think we can reduce the number of traffic accidents.
Now, when I drive a car and I get to an intersection, I'm a little bit confused. It's probably because we don't have that in Europe like that. There's this raising hand and it starts flashing.
Flashing hand,
yeah.
yeah.
And sometimes you see pedestrians still crossing over and you think, okay, why are they doing this? Because usually for drivers, as I remember in our last show with you, you mentioned that when it's yellow, you have to clear the intersection. You cannot drive into the intersection. Is that the same thing with the pedestrians when the hand is flashing?
Yep, definitely. We have 3 traffic signals for pedestrian. The walk sign, which is the white man usually, and we have the don't walk signal, which is shown in 2 different ways. One's the flashing hand, as you mentioned, and one's the steady hand. So the flashing hand, actually, once this comes up, it does mean actually for the pedestrian in the crosswalk to leave the crosswalk and not to enter the crosswalk, right? So we do not go into the crosswalk. That's the same as the steady hand. Once the hand is up, we do not enter. And as you mentioned, yes, we see it often enough, especially downtown Vancouver in a busy intersection. People still cross the intersections in the last minute, and it just causes a problem for the drivers. Like as you mentioned, you want to turn right or turn left, and you have to wait. Now for those last-minute pedestrian.
Now compared to Europe and also in a few US states, we are actually allowed to turn right even when it's red light, correct? How does that comply with this flashing thing? As you just mentioned, it really irritates drivers when someone is still jumping in front of the car because he thinks he can cross the street.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what we have is the flashing hand, as I mentioned earlier, right? The last minute pedestrian still hopping into the street in the intersection. It is an offense under the Motor Vehicle Act. It is a ticket offense actually.
So you can write a ticket actually?
Yeah, it is, I believe, $108 or $109.
Oh, wow.
And I've given some of them actually to pedestrian.
Did you get some resistance, or did they actually
totally
see the...
No, people usually do understand once I explain endangered. And we have enough traffic accidents and stats, which actually just show the numbers where usually we have the most incidents with pedestrian-related incidents, and those are in the intersections usually.
Now, as a driver, I would actually know, this is not directly the pedestrian thing, but when I remember there's a red light also flashing, right? The red light flashing means a stop, full stop for the drivers at the intersection, if I understand it correctly. But then there's also the yellow light flashing for car drivers. Does that mean that they have to just pay attention when they get close to that intersection? Huh?
You know what?
And then
usually the yellow flashing light is not, let's say, at intersections, at a crosswalk in the middle of a street somewhere. There's eventually a crosswalk, and the overhead hanging yellow lights flashing means the crosswalk is occupied. So from some pedestrian, they can push a button in order to cross the street at the marked crosswalk. So once they push the button, the yellow light comes on, and that means actually crosswalk is occupied, and you are actually now obligated to stop for that pedestrian in a crosswalk. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried that I asked you too many questions, that at the end of the show you might say, Mas, you should do your driver's license again. So we better move on with that. And I would like to ask you, jaywalking. Actually, you know what, before you ask, may I ask for a coffee? You gave me a cup, but the cup is empty.
Oh, okay, coffee is ready.
There you go.
All right. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome. And what I would like to know, jaywalking. We don't have in Germany that expression. Why is it called jaywalking? Is it because it's a, I don't know, is it a J form or, and what would you do actually when you see someone walking over the street without a traffic light or without if it's not an intersection or within that 2-block rule which you mentioned in our last show?
Yeah, you know what the jaywalking refers to, as you just mentioned, right? Crossing a street away from an intersection, but close enough to an intersection actually. If you have a 2-block distance, yes, you can cross the street anywhere in that 2-block distance. However, if it's a 1-block, then you should use the intersections. And again, the jaywalking is a ticket offense again, but I don't want to elaborate so much on the ticket offense itself, just more or less on the danger actually, because many car drivers, they just don't expect that you cross a street, except in the intersection or crosswalks, right?
Is there a difference between crossing the street? It sounds stupid, but I mean, is there a difference between crossing the street on the shortest way or diagonal, which is a longer way? What would you say?
But you know what? Again, we have intersections with marked crosswalks, and they are in a direct line, so they are usually in a square format designed, and it is the shortest way to cross a street from A to B or from one side to the other side.
I guess I don't need to ask you for statistics in terms of what time of the day these most accidents happen. I guess probably in the night, right, when it's dark.
Actually, no, you know what? The statistics actually do show the most traffic-related incidents are happening during the daytime, and clearly speaking, we have just higher traffic during the daytime. And the more traffic, the higher the risk of traffic incidents. And if you come already down to stat numbers, I can tell you that we had the years before and also last year, I looked it up, 50% of all traffic fatalities where pedestrians were actually involved in.
Wow,
50%, yes. And unfortunately or tragically, all those or most of them could have been preventable if we would have just followed the traffic rules.
For the driver or for the pedestrian?
Both. On both sides. If you would have followed the traffic rules and showed a little bit more respect for each other. Yeah, this just compares up the numbers, like 50% pedestrian were the cause factor, where 56% of all those were in those fatalities were pedestrians, and I think 18% were driver related, or where the driver was actually a casualty, and down to 4% where the cyclist was a casualty.
Motorcyclists? Or cyclists?
Bicyclists, the casualty, So that just shows us how vulnerable we are as pedestrians compared to a driver.
I made a note here. I just read that, no, but that's about motorcyclists. I don't know how it's about bicycle riders. That they actually have to wear now, I don't know, have you heard that? They have to wear now a reflector jacket. They have to. It's by law in France. Are we thinking actually of these things?
You know what?
Here?
Those are European laws. They have to have reflector jackets. It's also mandatory to have protectors in European countries, as Germany, for example. You have to have protectors in the elbow and in the back, for example. Right. Here, we're not quite there yet to regulate as stringent as it is in Europe. Yeah. The European traffic is much tighter and denser. Yeah. That's one reason, probably.
I got something for you. And I want to show you that. I've got it in my bag here. So, that's number one. Give me your hand. And here.
Oh, look at that.
This is a reflector.
Perfect.
Yeah, these things we don't have here, right? I mean, this is for...
Yeah, you can buy some of those as well here.
Yeah? I mean, I have seen this. This is, I don't mention the companies, but
and if you
this is quite good too. You can have this as a reflector. It's absolutely perfect, no?
Perfect, yeah.
And then I got, do you think this is too much? Something like this? I mean, it's a light.
No, you know what?
If you have it here at your belt or something like that. If you give this, for example, as a present to your grandfather or to your father.
You know what, it depends, yeah. Like, for example,
if you bicycle rides usually.
Yeah, but also if you walk your children to school, or if you have a stroller, you can clip it on, or on a backpack in the back, or on a stroller, right? I had a little bit of smaller size for our dog to put just on a collar when I walk the dog at night.
Yeah, because when it runs away.
You know what, whatever you come up with, it's perfect, yeah.
What about this? Do you know this?
Oh, look at that.
This is
just a thing.
I guess it's a little bit too big to carry it around.
Yeah.
But this is an emergency light. Since we have talked...
but you know what, if you, for example, drive a car and you store your car and you have maybe the battery's dead, put this on, maybe put it on the roof, so for other drivers to be aware, right?
It's like, here we go.
Yeah.
It's kind of pretty practical, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying this is not an overkill if someone wants to go really sure.
You know what,
you don't have to have...
If you come up with some, like those methods to protect yourself, your family, I can only agree to it. That's good.
No?
Yeah, it's very good.
What do you advise to drivers when they see a group of children even on the pedestrian side, not on the street, but if they see a group of children, small children?
If you see small, young children, slow down, right?
Absolutely.
Slow down. There's no question about it. Of course, slow down.
Do we learn that here at the driver's school? Do they tell you these things? Slow down and
those driving schools or safety driving schools.
Can turn this
they
off.
probably have it in their program, but the thing is, we don't have it mandatory that we do need to go to a driver's school. So
you know, it happened to me that I saw a father with his small toddler, and it was anyway a 30-kilometer zone. I drove slow, but I even drove slower because the little kid suddenly pulled itself out of the hand of the father and runs straight in front of my car. And I could stop, I was not fast. And I thought, holy smoke, if I would have been now 50 or 30, it would have been death.
You know what, perfect example, it just comes exactly down to this in the end, right? Do you have to go that fast? You have to be a minute earlier somewhere? Or is it just your driving habit? And eventually change your driving habit, because once you kill somebody's child, it could be yours, it could be your neighbors, it could be somebody else, but it's just too late then, right? So change your driving habit if you're one of those lead-foot drivers. Slow down if you see a playground, a school ground, or children's on a sidewalk. Slow down. It doesn't hurt to be a minute late and save somebody's life, right?
You mentioned earlier something about the toothbrush, and I was kind of... Yeah, I was pretty much
you know what?
Shocked about that.
To our viewers now, I give my toothbrush story. What I often ask police officers if I do pull over a driver who was either too fast or maybe with no seatbelt, etc. We do have to give the next of kin information. We as police officers, we do have to visit the family. And what I then tell usually to the driver, if you come home tonight and you brush your teeth, for those 3 minutes, think of, you have a traffic accident, a fatal traffic accident and you passed away, what happened to your family? And I can tell you what happened. I will go to your family, to your wife, to your sister, to your brother, to your parents, and I will knock at the door and tell them that you had a traffic accident. And usually the family members know, once I attend in uniform at your door, at your family's door, they know that's probably a terrible traffic accident happened. So what then happened, probably they start crying and whining at home. Maybe other family members, maybe your children waking up at night and asking mom, why is mom whining or crying? And then mom probably will tell them that daddy's not coming home. Not anymore. Think of that. Think of the moment you had a traffic accident, what happened then to your family. And if that eventually changed your driving behavior, we have gained both on both sides. So usually that story usually hits the driver home, and drivers so far in my last 10 years of police service in Vancouver, they usually thank me for waking them up, I guess. And they take the ticket home as a souvenir and hopefully have a memory for a long time, right?
But what are you going to say to drivers who just have a fast car? I think it's kind of difficult probably to convince someone who's got a Ferrari or...
Yeah, but also if Ferrari is able to drive 50 kilometers an hour or less in a city, you don't need to drive 80. So it's the driver, right, who's driving it. It's not the car itself.
Yeah.
For the pedestrian, I only want to give a couple of hints how we can reduce the number of injuries and fatalities, because that's what our goal is as police, to have a safe community. It's very important to obey all signs and signals. Make eye contact with the driver if you cross an intersection. Be alert and aware of your surroundings. As well, use designated crosswalks.
Have you noticed sometimes you see pedestrians, usually young kids, with really big iPhones, I mean these closed ones where you really don't hear anything except what's coming out of the earpieces. Do you stop them actually if they're pedestrian, or do you say, well, that's none of our business unless something happens, but I can only, I mean, can you give them some advice from your perspective?
Yeah, you know what, pedestrian, you see it unfortunately too often, as you mentioned, the big headphones, or
an iPhone
they distract
in their
themselves
hands,
with their smartphones in their hand
yeah.
and crossing the street or intersections. And on top of it, maybe when the hand is flashing. Of course, if they do commit an offense, we can approach them and talk to them.
But you wouldn't stop them to warn them?
You know what, no, if there's a pedestrian on a sidewalk and just walking with a big headphones on there, there's not really for us to intervene. However, if it becomes, of course, a danger to themselves or to other traffic members, I have no problems to stop and then at least advise the person of their wrongdoing, for the lack of term. Yeah, unfortunately, if you do use your smartphone, as I mentioned earlier, be aware of your surroundings. You are not aware of your surroundings because you are fully distracted to whatever's happened on your phone. So you may not see if a car comes from the left or from the right doing a turn, or perhaps maybe, let's face it, we do have also drivers who are using their smartphones, right? So if both now pay no attention, it's a traffic accident in the making right there. The pedestrian who's maybe on the smartphone has no chance to react if a car is right in front of him or her driving, right? So the driver, if he or she is on the smartphone as well, or on the mapping or GPS, whatever they do, the 1 second distraction, just 1 second, takes you by a speed of 50 kilometers an hour, about 50 feet. You can do your math. 1 second, you have your head down on a phone. Now you look up. It takes at least another second before you react. Maybe to recognize what's going on. There is a pedestrian right in front of you. Maybe it takes another second to react and apply the brakes. So now we talk about 3 seconds. So in 3 seconds, we can cover eventually 150 feet.
Wow, 150 feet.
Now we have 50 feet per second, right? In 3 seconds, 150 feet. Wow. Can you imagine Now you see a pedestrian just crossing the street, not paying attention.
No chance.
Because on the smartphone, and you as driver, because you just had to look down on your smartphone. It is, as I mentioned, right? An accident to happen.
Officer Falke, you gave us really some good, valuable information. Do you have a strong advice for parents? You have maybe kids. How would you train them to learn how to behave in traffic as a pedestrian? And what would you advise adults when they see children at a traffic light or
Very
at the
good
road?
question.
Yeah.
If you do have children, teach them. If you can afford time-wise, to walk them to school and from school and show them the traffic lights. Show them the light signal changes, what each phase means. Once you cross the street at the traffic signal, as pedestrian, stop, watch left and right the traffic, the cars slowing down. Sometimes cars, they go through red. Show the child, look left and right, look at the driver's eye, see if the cars slow down and stop, and then cross the street. Don't just run over, right? So that's one big thing. Don't jaywalk. You know what, you as an adult with a child, you may see the cars, if you go cross between cars, parking cars on the side, jaywalking. You can look over the cars and see if oncoming cars are coming or not. The child is way smaller, they cannot see it. So if you go with your child and doing jaywalking, crossing between parking cars, the child will be conditioned on that eventually.
And the driver cannot see the child.
Exactly,
On top of that,
and the child cannot see the car, and the driver cannot see the child either. So what if the child copies you one day? So as an adult, if you see a parent with their child or children at the street, obey the traffic regulation.
At least then.
Because we teach them eventually just with we teach them the wrong behavior. They learn it from us. They copy us. That's what children do. They see us and they copy us. And yeah, we don't think so far that we have an impact on them, but we do. They copy us maybe the day after, and they get killed in a traffic accident.
Yeah. Do schools provide actually these kind of things? I remember at my school time, we had actually a cop coming from the, from the local area, and he was actually putting up the map, and there was all the traffics, the roads and everything drawn in, and they teach us how to.
Yeah, I remember that from my time. We even had
bicycles and all that.
Out in a schoolyard with a little bicycle, little cones. You had to drive around and stop and walk. We do have a school safety unit. We go out to schools and provide those safety little workshops or seminars. But if it's on a regular basis, like on their curriculum in the school education system, I'm not sure. There would be something. Maybe we should invite somebody from the Vancouver School Board next time here and ask those questions.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, Officer Falke, thank you very much. And we will see each other again on our next show, on one of our next shows, when we talk about motorbikes.
Oh, perfect.
Motorbikes and bicycles, right?
Yeah.
Let's do both.
Let's do both, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. And don't forget, follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook, and just check out our website, AhornTV.com. All right. See you next week. Thank you.